Welcome YouTube subscribers, viewers, those on Facebook, anybody checking out this video. This is Bill Mack here with Pro Wrestling Unleashed. I am here once again with another edition of Impact Wrestling Wrap Up. This is for April April 6th, 2017. We have a great episode here for you today, folks. To me, the episodes are actually getting a little bit better. So I can hopefully this is for this is what's going to happen from now on, and hopefully they'll get better and better and get more people into watching it. Tonight's episode begins off with Eli Drake and Caleb Conley. They're both in the ring already. The bell rings just as Impact comes on, so we see no entrances. Why that happens is beyond me. Yes, once again, they've got to get their producing down pat to give it more of an authentic look than just something that comes off for people to see, which I really am not a big fan of not having these things in line. But needless to say, Tyrus is out with Eli Drake. Match goes back and forth. We see that basically Caleb Conley gets distracted while he's on the top rope. Eli Drake runs up, hits him in a superplex. He ends up hitting his new finisher on Caleb Conley, which kind of looks like white noise that Sheamus does. But he gets the 1, 2, 3 count. Eli Drake picks up in the win in the kickoff matchup of Impact Wrestling tonight. So we see JB through the commentary is doing what they've been doing the last few weeks. We know at some point this is going to culminate into an ending somewhere. Bruce Pritchard comes out. He is just tired of hearing them going back and forth. The Pope is just sitting back in his chair with his hands crossed, and then they get to a point to where they're wanting that JB threatens to knock Josh out. So Bruce Pritchard says, look, we want both of you. We're tired of hearing this. The fans are tired of hearing this. We want you both in the ring now. We're going to get this solved, and how we're going to do is this. JB, you and Josh, you each pick 4 members of a team. Next week they're going to fight, and they're going to wrestle each other. The winner of that team, the announcer stays the announcer. So that means one of them is not going to no longer be the announcer or commentator for Impact Wrestling. So they go back and forth insulting each other. And so they say, okay, this is what we'll do. They end up shaking hands at the end of it, and Josh pulling JB to him and just staring him at the face, trying to be intimidating Josh, which is typical Josh heel announcer. So they go to commercial. Now, we come back from commercial. We see the Knockouts Gauntlet match for the #1 contendership to take the right to take on Rosemary for the Knockouts Championship. We see Madison Rayne and Ava Story both started off with quite a few new faces in the Knockouts division. Then they're both going back and forth at it. Then Rebel comes out. Then Rebel and her are double teaming Ava. We see they get into an argument of which one of those two are going to fight and eliminate Ava. Then while they're arguing, Amanda Rodriguez, she comes out and they start battling each other, and she and Ava are battling, and then the ring is starting to get filled up as we see with knockouts. Nobody has been eliminated as of yet. Then we see that basically MJ Jenkins, she comes out. They all go left and right. She's starting to fight them, and they're all fighting and whatnot. And we see that basically Madison Rayne is taking the smart heel move where she's basically hiding in the corner because she doesn't want anybody at all to bother her. And so we see that, excuse me, Diamante, from the LAX, she comes out as next, and she starts stomping down on Amanda. She ends up hitting a drop kick on her in the corner. We see that Rebel ends up eliminating Amanda, just as ODB. She's the next one to come out, makes her way out. ODB is fighting him, and she ends up throwing the rest of the women and knockouts into the corner, and she does this big splash, and they all go down. And then basically she ends up throwing Ava Story over the top rope. And then Brandy Rhodes comes out. She's the last knockout to come out. And then she ends up eliminating Diamante. And then MJ Jenkins ends up eliminating Rebel. And Jenkins takes all the knockouts down, except for Madison, who's basically still on the outside. She's hiding once again. She's picking and choosing her, which is typical heel, to pick their spots when they try to show up, which is a pretty good idea. We see that it's basically Madison Rain comes back in, and she ends up throws out Brandy over the top. So now it's finally down to ODB, and it's down to Madison Rain, and they basically go into it turns into a matchup somehow, and then Madison has ODB in the corner. And she starts prancing around the ring like a typical heel, showing off, not really focused on the opponent. ODB ends up grabbing her, hitting her in the avalanche. 1, 2, 3 for the K and a KO for the 3 count. That's it. You're not number one contender for the Knockouts Championship against Rosemary is ODB. So congrats to ODB on that, and they go to commercial. So when we come back, we see James Storm in the ring. Remember, there's a lot of stuff went on down the last few weeks with James Storm. Remember, he was with DCC, and then a lot of stuff happened last week, and we saw him basically leave the DCC behind Kingston and Bram. Then we see that he gets in the ring and starts cutting a promo about he's ready to get back to where he was and being the cowboy once again. And then we see all of a sudden Kingston and Bram, they come down to the ring dressed in their DCC stuff. And Kingston gets on the mic and lays into James Storm, telling him how much of a liar he was. And people were in the back were telling him how much of a liar he was and how we get him a job, he turned his back on him, blah, blah, blah. He gets mad and destroys the DCC mask, the plastic mask, the white one that he had, and threw the jacket and stuff off. And then he gets in cutting a heel promo on James. James up getting the last call kick on him. And then he catches Bram, and Bram has a chair in his hand when he comes out. So he's telling Bram, look, don't, you don't want to do this. He's trying to tell you something and trying to brainwash you. Don't believe him whatsoever. We can work this out. We can do this. So then he goes and Bram goes to hit him. He misses. And Cowboy James Storm hits the last call kick on him. And he goes to the side. He gets his beer. He gets the cowboy hat. That's ringside because he didn't wear it out. He wore a ball cap actually out to the ring. So he put his cowboy hat on, and he cheers to the crowd and drinks his beer in the corner, and then he goes to the back. So I thought that was a pretty good segment there with James Storm announcing that he's going to basically go back to being the cowboy rather than being a part of DCC. And so it was a good ending there. Up next, we see Andrew Everett. We see that basically Trevor Lee was in the back talking, and Adam Everett was talking, about his chance to basically potentially face Adam Everett for the X Division title. Helms comes out to the interview along with Trevor Lee, and he tells him that all he has to do is win this triple threat match, and maybe, just maybe, it'll be one step closer to facing Trevor Lee. So we see that once again, that maybe one step closer. So it doesn't mean he's not going to get it. So we end up seeing Everett take on Suicide, taking on Marche Rocket. It was basically a good match. All three guys had their own spots where they were doing certain moves. Suicide, Adam Everett, Marche Rocket, and basically the finish came when Suicide laid out Marche with Insajuri, and Everett hit the Pele kick to Suicide, and then he ends up hitting a shooting star press on the Rocket, or Roque, however he pronounces his name, for the 3 count, 1, 2, 3. And we see that Adam Everett has once again, he has survived a triple threat matchup. Once again, he's one step closer to getting another matchup against Trevor Lee for the X Division title. So they go to commercial. And then after the commercial, this has been what's announced throughout the whole night, a last man standing match. To me, this was the best match on the card. This is what made the episode, because it was quite a while. We see Davey Richards coming down with Angelina Love, his wife, and we'll get more into it in just a minute. Take a quick break, a quick pause, and we'll be right back, folks. So hang tight. So they went ahead and basically they've tried to get, they built Angelina Love kind of be getting in the head of David Richards, and it's kind of been that split to where she's had her spell over him, and he's doing basically what she wants. And we see more in this matchup of it, And so this was the last man standing match. They've been basically teasing it. Davey Richards is coming down to the ring with Angelina Love. Out of nowhere, Eddie Edwards hits him, and they go ahead and start the fight outside. Now, mind you, the match has not started. The bell is not rang yet, but yet they're going to still go and start this matchup off. And at once Eddie throws Davey into the matchup. Now, this was, like I said, folks, a really good matchup. I thought it was the match that made the episode really worth watching. And they basically take this match all over the place. I mean, from the inside of the ring, they fight to the crowd, to the fans, and they do different moves where Eddie's trying to flip over onto Davey, and Davey moves, and Eddie falls right through the trash can. One of those green trash cans. I mean, the real ones, not the fake ones that you see, those aluminum ones that look like real trash cans. They get points like that. I mean, they just go all over the place. I thought it was really good matchup on the outside. You see Angelina kind of looking at him. We see once they get back in the ring, Davey kind of takes control of it, and he grabs the chair and he presses it down on the throat of Eddie Edwards. This was going back and forth, and you've seen Angelina Love putting chairs in the ring and another chair in the ring, and we see that Davey tries to set it up facing each other, and then Eddie kind of ends up reversing it and putting Davey through the through the chairs and injuring him. And then we see him back when Davey is making out once again with her through the whole matchup. So much like it was last week and all that, since they've been together, just kissing and whatnot the whole time over and over again. So we're kind of showing that she basically ends up being that very driving force behind Eddie Edwards. So then Eddie Edwards, while Davey is down, he's getting more chairs to go on each side of the ring. He's throwing a chair in. He's either hitting him with it, trying to get it back out. He's throwing his big pile up of chairs into the ring. And then we see that he throws at one point a chair and hits Eddie in the head with it. Both men get on the top rope, and then Richards ends up putting in a superplex with Eddie through the pile of chairs that Eddie has piled up there. Davey hits him with it. Davey hits the superplex. Both he and Eddie both land on the pile of chairs in the ring, which was a pretty cool moment to see. Because for a moment you thought Eddie was going to fight out of it, but then Davey overpowers him, ends up getting. Now, mind you, this Angelina Love is in the corner of Davey. Eddie's wife, which is Alicia, they show her on the outside, behind the barrier, the barrier outside, and she's trying to cheer on Eddie this whole time, and Angelina and her going back and forth. So we see at a point this is going to come to some point in this matchup, as we can kind of foreshadow and tell that she's somehow going to be involved some way in this matchup. So we basically see them going back and forth with it, and Angelina ends up. Eddie goes and fights back. Once they go and he hits a running splash into the corner with the chair on to Davey. We see that Richards gets hung upside down in the corner, and we see that they sets up the chairs, and he lays one across him and one above, and then Eddie goes to the other side and does a drop kick to slam both chairs into Davey that's hanging upside down. Pretty cool spot with those guys to hit there. I mean, this was a pretty cool matchup. And then the referee starts to count. Eddie says, "No, I'm not done with him yet." Then out of nowhere, we see Angelina make her, she goes and attacks Eddie Edwards on the inside. And then Alicia comes in and she drags her out. They're both going to fight on the outside. Then Angelina throws Alicia into the barrier, so Alicia is out. So then we see that Richards goes and turns the table and hits Eddie down on it with the chair. He takes a chain. He takes a chain, and Angelina hands it to him, and he takes it and he wraps it around his boot, and he pauses for a minute like he's trying to debate whether really to do a kick with that chain tied to his boot. So then she says, "Look at me," and then she kisses him, and she has his hand touching her heart, and she kisses him, and she says, "Do this for me." And then he kicks Eddie Edwards in the head with the chain wrapped around his boot. And then he gets to 10. He's down for the 10 count. The referee counts to 10. It's over with, and we see both of them standing above Eddie Edwards in the corner. So here we have Davey Richards along with Angelina Love, and they get the win. He gets the win over Eddie Edwards in a last man standing match, and they go to commercial break. So then we see Alberto El Patron, and earlier in the night he had came out to call out Lashley, but Lashley never came out, and then they went to an interview. So now we see Patron back in. He faces this dude, and I think his name is James Polk, I believe. They couldn't quite get his name, but we knew it was just a squash match for El Patron, and then he ends up hitting that double stomp on the jobber to end up winning the matchup, and then after the matchup, he calls out Lashley. And we see backstage, we see Mackenzie, which is very beautiful. Been noticing Mackenzie, but she was interviewing Allie and Braxton, and she talked about she was finally glad that Allie stepped up, and she stood up to Sienna. And then it was like KM and Sienna come in, and they start arguing back and forth. And Karen Jarrett gets in the middle of them and tells them, break it up, break it up. And she tells Brandon, she says, "You're too good for this." She tells Braxton, Sutter that, "You're too good for this." And says, "Okay, you want to know what? Next week, you want to fight each other so bad, well, here's what we're going to do. Next week on Impact, we're going to have a 2-on-2. We're going to have KM and Sienna. You're taking on Allie and Braxton." And basically they agree to it, and Sienna does, "Yes, Miss Jarrett." And then they eventually leave, which leads us to what everybody's kind of been looking forward to in this matchup. We've seen what it all boils down to is our draft, TNA or Impact Wrestling draft. So we see Josh, Bruce says, "Okay, Josh won the coin toss. Josh gets the first pick." Josh says, "I'm going to pick I'm going to pick Bobby Lashley." So basically, Bobby Lashley comes out. Jeremy Borash is like, "Okay, I'm going to pick a man who pinned Bobby Lashley. I'm going to pick Alberto El Patron." So El Patron comes out there, gets in Bobby's face like he's going to fight him, but they have to break him up, and they have to stand on each other's side. So then we see Josh looks at him, and Josh calls out Bram. Josh says, "Bram will be my second pick." So Bram comes out there, and Josh has got these funny shirts that have a goat, says that his team is the greatest of all time, and that's, he gives him a shirt. So then JB comes out, and JB says, "We're going to pick a guy here now. We went a little bit outside the roster here. He only had a brief stint in here, but we're going to have him back to throw you off, Josh." And he calls out Chris Adonis. Chris Adonis, if many of you know, used to be Chris Masterson on WWE. Used to be really strong and really jacked. Used to do that that full Nelson kind of lock. But he comes out there, and he El Patron, and then Josh confers with Bram and Lashley, and he calls out Eli Drake. So Eli Drake comes down to the ring, and he's in the ring with them. But then Tyrus comes down, and they're like, "Hey, Tyrus, there's 4 men. He doesn't need to be in here." So Bruce is telling them, like, "Look, this is only for the team members right now." And Tyrus said, "Well, I go where Eli goes." So then all of a sudden, Josh says, "Get them, boys. This is my team. Get them, boys." So then you have all 4 members of Josh's team attacking El Patron and attacking Chris Adonis. And then out of nowhere, JB announces that his champion is Matt Morgan coming out. His 3rd member of Matt Morgan is coming out. And who is the 4th member? Well, you'll just have to stay tuned in a second. We'll be right back, and I'll close this bad boy out. So just hold on tight. So we see that the 4th man, but they don't show who it is. The 4th man, they said, "Well, you'll have to stay tuned. Tune in to Impact Wrestling to see." The camera's going to keep rolling to see who the 4th man is. And they show a limousine and somebody with their with dress clothes, you could tell basically on, with a suit, with the pants legs and the shoes showing, and they're going to the ring. But we don't see who it is. So then I had to go over to ImpactWrestling.com to find out. And lo and behold, coming down to the ring was Magnus. Magnus is the surprise fourth member of JB's team. Now this is really comes off the heel because as of lately, those is a tidbit of Impact Wrestling news. Jeff Jarrett, which is the chief creative officer for Impact Wrestling, has kind of teased that both Impact Wrestling and Global Force were going to pull together as one, which should make sense since Jarrett owns Global Force and now he's a part of it, and having those guys come over and combine together. I think that's a good idea, and them slowly becoming one company, make it stronger, and hopefully get it off its feet and pulling up. I haven't given up on Impact Wrestling, and I won't give up until they close the doors. Hopefully they can keep going on, put on a viable alternative and something that fans want to watch. Like I said, they got to get a few things done. But needless to say, Magnus comes out, they start clearing the ring, and then you have all the fans started chanting, welcome back to Magnus, as he is he was the Global Force Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. I think that's what he was. Of course, he's married to Mickie James, which as we know, recently signed with SmackDown Live. She's in WWE. But he comes out to clear the ring. Matt Morgan, you see him posing. Chris Adonis, and you see Chris Adonis and Magnus and all of them together posing in the ring. Faces standing tall, and we see basically the heels on the floor and around. So this looks like to be a good setup for next week. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to a good episode next week. I feel like they're getting on the right track if they just get this stuff. And I know it's going to be slowly but surely getting it, but hopefully they can get it producing right and make it another show to where now they did show a couple of segments of upcoming debuts. I'll tell you about now since it's the end of the video. They did show one. They kept showing this one on Fury of this. She looks like a Nia Jax-sized woman that's making her debut supposedly next week. And you've seen this one of these two guys called the VOWs, the Veterans of War. So I think their wrestlers is going to come in and probably next week appear. I don't remember seeing it say next week, but they may appear next week. But so that remains to be seen on who these guys are, and it remains to be seen on who Fury is. So those were the basically two upcoming talents that are going to be coming to TNA very soon, if not early as next week. So I hope if you enjoyed the show. I know it was a little bit longer than expected, a little more drawn out, but I hope you fans enjoy it. I try to put on good content for you, Impact Wrestling, whatever, WWE, SmackDown, WWE Raw, the pay-per-views. Try to do it all for you. It's a lot. I may not get a lot of views, but I'm a big avid wrestling fan, and I do thank each and every one of you that do view this video. If you do like this video, please click the like button in YouTube. If you're watching in YouTube, click like on there. If you're a subscriber on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate that. I'll try to put out the best content. If you have any kind of comments whatsoever, feel free to put them there. I will look at the comments, and if it's anything helpful, I will try to do my best and answer your comments back. So until next time, until another edition of Pro Wrestling Unleashed, this is, of course, Bill Mack. Take it easy.